Reef DVM's coming at you with a pile of steel. No, I'm just teasing. We've got draft horses on the farm, and we'd like to take these supplies and make a draft horse feeder. And to do that, we're going to kind of start the assembly process on the floor of kind of a neat feeder called an H-8 horse hay saving feeder. Klene Pipe Structures makes this kit, and it's really a nice setup. I'm not a big fan of metal feeders, as many of you guys know. I like my poly feeders for my beef cattle, and certainly I would have liked something probably in the poly line for a big draft horse. I've had hay huts. I've had the Cashman's hay hut, and I really do like them. But the problem I was running into with them is the horse would get too tall for the openings, and we'd have different issues with the animal lifting it up or hurting their hair on the mane, or just moving the structure around where it shouldn't be. So here I decided to invest in one of these and put it together. There's a little bit of work as I'm putting the skid together. You've got to get these carriage bolts banged in flush so that the carriage bolt holds, so you can tighten it up. It's kind of a cold winter day doing this, but I've got the screw gun and I'm tightening everything down that way. It's got a nice set of directions when this comes. It's shipped to you on a pallet with the wood for the floor of the feeder and a couple 2x4s for the edges of the feeder floor, and then all the steel you need. It does not ship with the roof that you'll see in this. It does ship with a materials list if you wish to build a roof, but some people don't need to build a roof and other people do. My daughter Tabitha here is going to help us out with this as we put this together. It's probably a two-man project, so I'll use my wife when I need a little bit more strength, but otherwise I'm just going to go with my daughter, and we're going to put this together over a couple nights, and then we're going to get it out. My goal with this unit is to kind of twofold. Number one, I do like to keep hay in the structure. And the way the H-8 big bale draft horse feeder is set up, it's got these gates on each side which lay against your bales, and as the horse eats, they lay down. That keeps the hay, in the structure, even when it gets windy and stormy. The other thing with it is it slows the horses down a little bit. I wanted to make sure when I found a feeder that I could still use my nets. I do like nets on bales. I like the heavy duty ones. It slows the horses down, keeps the bale intact even more. And this feeder also uses it like the Cashman's Poly does, okay? So that was really intriguing to me. Of course, I wanted it galvanated. The rust of metal in, state of Minnesota is just crazy. So for me, I'm just trying to postpone probably the inevitable, but this thing will probably hopefully last a good 20, 30 years. The other thing that I really like to do is I like to keep the weather off my hay. And when I say weather, I'm talking about heavy rains and cold snows. That doesn't mean snow's not going to get on the hay, but I just don't want it piling up where the animals are working to dig out their food, and their food is so frozen they can't work with it. So to me, a shelter over the top of hay is the way to go. This is my first experience with this type of feeder. So, getting it out here and paying the cost, it's not cheap. But there aren't many companies out there that are making a feeder suitable for a draft horse. And when I say suitable, I'm talking high enough off the ground. I am talking a high enough roof system on it where they're not going to hit it. I'm talking bars wide enough that the horse can easily get its nose in between without hooking up. And I wanted to make sure the bars would even be wide enough so that if I had a halter on the horse, that the halter wouldn't get caught going in and out. And this one is made the way I'd like it. Everything is rounded. There are a couple bolts that do stick out to the inside where there's some hinging, and I did make sure that at the end I covered those with plastic caps. But other than that, everything is really nice and round and really smooth, so that it's not a surface of, in theory, wear and tear on the horse. Again, I needed a little bit of help just kind of getting the two ends set up here. The structure is fairly heavy. I was concerned about it maybe getting blown over or tipped in the wind, and obviously tornado winds, yeah, this thing's gonna flatten over. but winds under 50 miles an hour, I bet you this thing would be able to hold through. Obviously, the bale, when you set a full bale in this, the bale itself is going to weigh 1,000 pounds, but I bet you the structure is over 1,000 pounds too. It was interesting when we got the pallet with the wood and all the pipes on it off the truck. That was registering just under 2,000 pounds. So obviously, it's a heavy structure, folks. It's meant to be pulled around, but you're not going to probably pull it with just a basic house lawnmower. You're going to need at least a decent tractor or a pickup or a skid steer or something to move this structure around. Putting the floor in was kind of fun. As you can see, my daughter just enjoyed it. It's a green treat that they sent us, so that's excellent. Because they used a green treat for the floor, I just decided to continue it for the roof. I'm not 100% sure that it has to be a green treat for the roof, but I decided I probably had a better chance of it working better. One thing I noticed is that when you put the green treat in, it's probably best to have the same direction on each board, so that if it does tend to kind of dry out and change, it'll all change the same. So I did line up the boards then the exact same. That'll help with when the green treat dries out, it's settling in and becoming more of a smooth surface versus one board warping up versus one board cupping down and so forth. Eventually got it all together on the floor, and then it was time to kind of work towards the gates. That's kind of a fun thing to do. The gates are what make this unit kind of unique. Again, there's two end gates where you can load from either side on, and those are little smaller openings. And then there's the two drop-down gates which push against the hay, and the horses eat through those two sides. I'm not saying they can't eat through the other sides, but with a draft horse with a big, wide, mouth and chin area, she's not going to fit through the ends, so that's fine. The ability to load from each side is quite nice. Just more options when you're out in the field and trying to put in a bale in the feeder. As far as the height of this one, I think the standard height for most horses is considered around 22 to 24 inches. This one obviously is pushing closer to 30, but remember that this one is specially made just for draft horses, which is really nice. You can get these made for regular horses. I don't know the cost of those. I'm assuming they might be a little cheaper. I'm not 100% sure. The cost to get this one out here was $1,800 with shipping. I put about a $300 roof on it, so I'm out a couple $1,000. But I think I've got a feeder that's going to work for her and not cause any more injury to her neck or head, or strain on her where I see her moving around some of the other devices we've had on the farm, like the poly ring or the hay huts and so forth. As far as the time frame it took to put this together, I think we worked 2 nights on it, just under 4 hours each night. It happened to be one day was actually even snowing and pretty nasty little storm, and it's a little cold in the barn because we only keep the floor at about 40, but it was quite nice to be able to work in there. As far as the actual assembly went, it went smooth. Yes, you do have to square it up here or there before you tighten a few bolts. Sure, I put in a couple parts and then had to take them apart and redo it because I didn't pay enough attention to the directions, but overall it assembled very, very easily. What you see me doing here is I've got 20-inch pieces of 4x4 green treat, ACS2, I think. I bought it from Menards. And I'm putting those up, and then I'm going to take basically a 2x6. I'm going to drill through those, and I'm going to bolt that together, to which then I'm going to make my purlings out of green treated 2x4s, and I'm going to double them up because I want them not to sag much with the heavy winter snows, and I'm going to put those across. Now, I could have stood those purlings up on their edge, and it might have given them a little bit more, but my hangers were meant for when those purlings would be going the other direction, so that's why they're laying on their side. And again, I doubled them up. I bought 4 sheets of Pro Rib steel from Menards, 12 feet long. Again, there's a list when you buy your H-8 feeder that he gives you. Kevin gives you a list of what entails to be bought if you want to put a roof on it. Kevin, by the way, is one of the sales guys for the company, and I talked to him several times on the phone before I made the purchase. And then, of course, once my product arrived, I had some discussions with him about how I was going to build my roof and so forth. And he was very, very accommodating. I highly recommend you work with him if you're going to order one of these. And, tell him what livestock you have. I mean, they make one of these for cattle. They make one of these, if I'm not mistaken, that could be used for goats. I believe they've got these for draft horses and, of course, standard size horses too. So you have a lot of different options with a feeder like this. This same company obviously does make run-ins too that can be put up in pastures and so forth. So there's a lot of structures that they supply. So very nice company to work with. Again, Kevin made it great. One of the things I enjoyed too is, of course, United States made, which is good. So here we are. I've got the roof on top, and I don't really enjoy heights, but up onto the top of it I go and screw it down. Basically, I double screwed the ends, so I went, every 6 inches across, and I stayed in the middle, so I didn't do the top of the ribs. And then in the middle, I hit one in each section. We picked it up with the 317G, and we hauled it out to the field. I know it's a little muddy looking right now, but remember it had just snowed the other night, and it's March out here, so it's trying to melt, but welcome to Minnesota. There'll be snow probably all the way into the middle or end of April. So here we are loading it. As you can see, it loads fairly easy, and this round bale is about, I'd say 900 pounds, and it's got, the hay net on it. I haven't seen many people use this feeder with a hay net, but again, we're going to, because I really want those horses just to kind of work and get their food. As far as, not using it, I'm sure it would work fine. You might just have a little more waste. So you can see here how I tip those gate ends in, and then those gate ends will just come down as they eat the bale. I've got a little Arab out here with Jewel right now. His name is Mr. B there, and he's in the kind of the green. I'm going to leave him out here for the sake of the video so you can see how well it works for more of a standard size horse versus, 17.4, 17.3 draft horse. It's getting late tonight when I was shooting this video, so I decided that I just get a little bit of, time with the horses around the feeder so they don't spook. And then we'll just let them have the dark and, relax for the evening out here. And then we'll come back in the morning and get hopefully some good shots of them eating out of it. By then they should be much more relaxed and comfortable around the feeder. Because right now the horses are just a little stressed with it. So we come back out here early in the morning. The little Arab, he's just going right at it. Again, this is the draft horse model, and don't be afraid of its size and its height. This guy can reach quite a ways into it. He's got another 18 to 20 inches that he can step up closer to this and reach further into it. And he doesn't have a problem. As you can see, he's got a mouthful of grass hay, and he's doing just fine. So there's no issue with Mr. B here as an Arab, eating out of this structure. Even though it's a little taller and bigger than most of the H-8 feeders that they probably put out. And then, of course, the real test is when we bring Jewel back over. And again, she's been out by the feeder now all night, so she's quite comfortable around it, which is good. She doesn't seem to be nervous around it, so it's kind of time to just turn her loose and let her feed on it, and just let them just get used to the feeder and accept that this is the new feeder for them for the rest of winter. We don't use these feeders much in the summer because, of course, we have a lot of pasture. Purposefully, we put her halter on. I wanted to show you, that she can reach in with the halter. These are round bars. The halter doesn't get caught. Mr. B just keeps getting in the way here. I have to get him out of the shot a little bit. They like to feed together, these two. But you can see she's just working right through that net, getting hay after hay after hay out. The bars aren't stopping her a bit. She can reach quite a ways in. She does just fantastic with it. Now, by the time I'm actually going to produce this video, it's going to be a few days later, and I'm sure this bale have even sunk more, but she's got so much neck reach that she can pretty much reach partway to the other side. The width on this thing seems to be about 6 feet. I would say the length of it is probably closer to 7 feet. Again, the height on this thing is kind of dependent upon how high you want to make your roof. But I've got it so that, if she tries to go up, she's not going to instantly smuck her head at all. She's not going to hurt the mane. And of course, that's a huge advantage to me. But yet, with that great big 12 by 12 roof over the top of it, I've got a nice shelter against heavy rains and even some of the snow. Granted, blowing snow will still get to the bale. You can see here she's actually started a pretty good divot overnight. The horse keeps getting in the way. Into the bale, which is good. And I appreciate you folks watching this. I hope you enjoy this feeder if you buy one. Certainly you can talk to Kevin about it more and contact him, but I'm real pleased to finally have a draft horse feeder on the farm specifically for my draft horses. Thanks for watching. Please like, and we'll put out great videos like this, folks.